Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we're checking out this black-green mid-range deck that's playing some old-school cards, such as Dark Confidant, now back in standard, 2 mana 2/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library, put it into your hand, you lose life equal to its mana value, so it can sometimes be a double-edged sword, but if you take a look at our curve, it is quite low, so usually we're only taking 1 or 2 damage from the Confidant on average. And then we've got Scavenging Ooze, also pretty useful in the current metagame as a way to exile cards from the opponent's graveyard, potentially gaining life and getting additional +1 counters in the process if those are creatures. So very useful against the Omniscience graveyard combo decks, but even against aggro and burn decks, it can be a good way to stabilize and gain some life back, and that also helps offset the Dark Confidant triggers. And then Liliana is another great way to pressure the opponent's resources by making each player discard a card with a +1, especially good in conjunction with an active Dark Confidant. The -2 makes the opponent sacrifice a creature, so another great way to fuel the graveyard for our Scavenging Ooze. Then we do not have Thoughtseize in standard, but we do have Duress to take away non-creature, non-land cards from the opponent's hand. Good to pressure combo and control decks, but even against prowess and burn decks, they'll have plenty of non-creature spells for us to take. And that's a good way to clear a path for Dark Confidant to make sure they don't have removal for it, so it can hopefully run away with the game. And then we have more hand disruption with Deep Cavern Bat stapled onto a 1/1 flying lifelinker, which can also make up for the Dark Confidant's life loss. And then we have 8 total discard effects against combo and control. We have some spot removal as well for aggro decks, 4 copies of Cut Down, 2 copies of Go for the Throat. And then we also need to have some answers to artifacts and enchantments nowadays, since the steel cutter is everywhere. So we've got 2 copies of Heritage Reclamation, which can blow up artifacts, enchantments, or maybe exile a card from a graveyard and draw, which is also useful against other graveyard combo decks. And then 2 copies of Maelstrom Pulse, which is always hoping to hit 2 of the same card if we're lucky enough. And then Mosswood Dread Knight, another way to kind of bridge the gap between a threat and a card draw engine, as a 3/2 that's difficult to get rid of if you can't exile it, and then can draw extra cards with the adventure. We're also trying 2 copies of Cecil at 1 mana, 2/3 Death Touch, can eventually transform into a 4/4 lifelinker, especially alongside Dark Confidant dealing us damage. It's not too difficult to transform. And then at 3 mana we also have Glissa Sunslayer, which can also draw us extra cards if it can connect, but also an answer to opposing enchantments. And then finally Shieldred the Apocalypse as our curve topper, a great way to offset the life loss from some of our card draw effects, and also a great way to punish opposing card draw. And then the mana base has a few utility lands with Restless Cottage as a creature land, especially good in the grindier matchups. And then the Mortuary letting us surveil 1 when it enters. And then plenty of black-green mana fixing, since we do need a lot of black mana early, but we would also like a decent amount of green mana when it comes to activating Scavenging Ooze, so additional green sources are still welcome. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand might be a little slow out of the gates, missing the cheap interaction, but I'll give it a shot, hoping Dark Confidant can draw us out of it. Don't need more lands. The Surveil can be pretty fun with Confidant, so you can maybe set something on top that's useful. Opponent appears to be on the Omniscience combo deck, so we're gonna need to find Graveyard Hate. And they already have Omniscience in the graveyard, so yeah, they're off to a great start. I play Confidant, hoping to draw answers. Can play Bat next turn before they get a chance to Abuel's Awakening. Opponent resolves stock up. So they're pretty likely to have found at least 1 Awakening. So yeah, now it's kind of an uphill battle. 1 Bat may not be enough disruption. They had the Awakening as well as a Voice of Victory, so they can maybe combo in 1 turn without needing to worry about instants. But yeah, I take the Awakening. They still have another stock up, so they can likely find more answers. But this is the best I can do. If we had a Cut Down in hand, I could have maybe let them go for the Awakening and then cut down the 1/1 Omniscience. Found another Bat. That helps. Also have to be mindful of a potential temporary lockdown, exiling all my creatures. So I probably want to bat before setting up any attacks, so we know whether or not bat can attack into Nephara's Dispersal. No lockdown. Exhale as a counter spell, as well as spell Pierce. So the River Regent is the bigger threat here, since it digs the deepest, and casting it for 6 is also quite good. And then we're probably all in with another Dark Confidant. Hope they don't top deck a lockdown, since they could still cast it after playing a Dragonstorm. And that would be a blowout, since we don't have an immediate answer. And yeah, there it is. Well, opponent gets their Awakening back, so we need to top deck an answer to the Omniscience combo, and we actually did. Now the problem is, I cannot also play Glissa, so it's just going to be Ooze Pass. But I guess that keeps me alive for now. Our opponent now reads Scavenging Ooze and casts the Regent. That makes sense. Although we can go for the Throated. And they didn't have the Dragonstorms in play anymore. Still gonna exile Omniscience here, just to be safe, and then I can tap out for Glissa, still play Ooze, and have a green mana up. I think we prefer that over playing the tapped Marsh, since our opponent could still discard another Omniscience and combo. Then Glissa destroying the lockdown gives us a lot of cards back, although the opponent also gets to return 2 Dragonstorms, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But overall, still seems worth it. Invasion might get a board wipe here. Although, if Glissa destroys a lockdown, we can just take it with a bat. So we'll see. Yep, takes Day of Judgment and casts a Voice. Exile Regent. And Reclamation is also quite good here, since it gives us instant speed, graveyard hate, plus potentially another answer to the lockdown. So our opponent presumably just chumps Glissa with a Voice of Victory, and then intends to Day of Judgment, and then we can let that happen, and then end of turn Reclamation the lockdown. They do have a few counter spells we have to watch out for. So I actually have to think about whether or not I want to pay a green to grow Scavenging Ooze. So Reclamation's 2, can pay for Exile and for Spell Pierce. I don't think I exile the Voice for 1 extra damage. We'll pass. Could also, of course, Reclamation now, and then the bat can take Day of Judgment. It's a little risky, because then if they ever find a bounce spell, they can wipe my board, because they would also get the Dragonstorms back. Triggers go active player, non-active, so I guess they would discard draw first, and then we resolve the Deep Cavern bat. Whereas if I Reclamation in their turn, then I would resolve the bat before they discard and draw. So maybe I'm actually going for Reclamation now. So they get to choose what to do with the Dragonstorms. And hopefully they haven't found multiple sweepers. Alright, they have Day of Judgment. And then, I imagine, Stock Up. Now they can Awakening back the lockdown as well, but then Ooze will just exile it. So we've got that covered. So yeah, they need to top deck another lockdown pretty much, which Glissa can still remove. Alright, our opponent may have either disconnected or they're trying to go for the make you think I'm gone, and then at the last second, a Will's Awakening lockdown. Hope you don't exile it with Scavenging Ooze, Gambit. But yeah, this game was still incredibly close. If we hadn't top-decked Scavenging Ooze when we did, our opponent would have been able to combo kill us. So just to make sure, I'll still exile the lockdown. And your voice. Take my turn, get some beautiful Dark Confidant triggers, and then an attack should seal the deal. So yeah, the key against these Omniscience decks is having Disruption in the form of Hand Disruption with Duress and Deep Cavern Bat, but also in the form of Graveyard Hate, since Hand Disruption by itself only gets you so far. And then ideally you have some pressure. Dark Confidant, drawing extra cards is great too, although of course does get exiled by lockdown. So then having answers to their enchantments is also useful. And our opponent explodes. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a keepable hand, I think. Do need to hit some more land drops. We're missing a source of card advantage. But hopefully those will follow. Alright, so against Blue-Red Prowess, kind of have to duress now to be able to take a cutter if they have one in hand. And double talent. Might have been able to blow up multiple creatures with one Maelstrom Pulse, which is also an answer to the cutter, but I would rather prevent them from making any tokens with it. Now Dread Knight we can play as a blocker. Happy to block Swiss Spear, even if they can maybe have the Swiss Spear survive. Because then next turn we just play Cecil and adventure the Dread Knight. So they have one unknown in hand. So, yeah, still gonna use a Dread Knight before it goes away, I think. Even though this might be a matchup where making use of every single card's not all that important, preserving our life total is. So we could also Maelstrom Pulse the Slick Shot, and then we're not under too much pressure, still have some good leftovers. Even though Pulse is our solution to a top-decked Steel Cutter. Yeah, close call. I think I do Adventure since we have a cheap 1-mana play we can make. Now we can maybe turn to Shieldred to gain some life back. And if they get us below 10 life, Cecil can transform. Alright, our opponent's gonna Sellsword just to trigger double show off. But double show off means Maelstrom Pulse is happy. So I will go to 3, but then have a lifelinker left. So I don't really see myself dying to a top deck. Since Cecil's untapped. Opponent can level up the talent and get back nothing. And our opponent explodes, get to gain 4, stabilize with Shieldred, and that's game. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a reasonable hand. Do we duress turn 1, or do we just get Cottage out of the way? Would be nice to unlock our green mana, since if I curve duress into Bat, then I may not be able to play Ooze on 3. So I think this works out better, but we'll see. Opponent with a Forsaken Miner. Dread Knight should be good if it's a grindy mid-range matchup. I can start with Deep Cavern Bat still. And her opponent's hand is all removal. So, probably take their Deep Cavern Bat, since they could take my Duress and I don't have removal to get it back. So then next turn they would probably just cut down my Bat. I get to untap and then go Duress one of your Go for the Throats, play the Dread Knight before they can take it with the Bat. think that makes sense. And if they decide to cut down, their turn is going to be less mana efficient as well. So we'll start by attacking. And take a go for the throat. And then I think we just cast the Dread Knight. Although it's also reasonable to adventure it first. But we should still be able to get it back if they decide to remove it. Opponent gets their bat back. But now they can only cast 1 2-drop. We're happy to trade. Even though our opponent gets to commit a crime here with a miner to get it back. So I guess that would use up all their mana. But then again, I'm happy to just re-adventure the Dread Knight and cast it. Not in a hurry to play Scavenging Ooze. So it's a close call. If they leave the miner in the graveyard, then we can exile it with Ooze, but I imagine they're just getting it back here. Alright, so nothing of value was lost. And now I could bat again, but we need to start with the Dread Knights. So what's the upside of bat over Dread Knights? Can take the Go for the Throat and they may not be able to cast it. I take 3 and go from there. Versus play Dread Knight, which can block the miner. So they're probably not going to want to attack. Otherwise the Ooze can gobble up the miner. I guess we still need to draw an extra green source for that. Alright, the rest is interesting. Alright, so probably just recast the Dread Knight. Opponent could go for the Throated, get back miner. But that's fine, versus could also just duress, take go for the Throat while they don't have a target. Small chance they picked up something else we can duress. Just not as mana efficient as going for a 2-drop here. But I think it makes sense given the Forsaken Miner situation. Alright, just a bunch of lands. So don't mind how this is going. Opponent's got to run our Confidant, makes sense. But now we can go for the Throat's Confidant. And exile the Forsaken Miner before it comes back. And there's another one. Okay, also can't forget about Restless Cottage, which can get in for 4. Might be better than playing the Dread Knight, honestly. Since we'll get a food token as well. And then want to leave creatures for Scavenging Ooze. Don't think it matters too much then. A Reclamation, also just cantrips. So now I could see Dread Knight. Play Bat, and then keep up either Ooze or food token. The miner's probably not going to attack into the Dread Knight. Opponent casts Tiny Bones. Right, they're still offering the trade here. That's strange. Since we get to trade, I guess the miner cannot block, so maybe that was their best use for it. But yeah, let's just gobble up the miner now. I'm happy to replay the Dread Knight. Take care of your tiny bones, so the ooze can keep attacking. And they've got one turn to top deck an answer. Cecil, they are at 7. So that could threaten to transform, but now cut down's an answer 2. Plus, yeah, we still had our cottage, so we could likely still attack for lethal anyway. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with Keeper. Turn 1, have a lot of options. Opponent's gonna duress, taking most likely our duress. So then Cecil it is. So this might be kind of mono black with a demon build. Second duress now can probably take Maelstrom Pulse, which would have been an answer to an Unholy Annex. So I guess now we can try and maybe steal something relevant with the bat. And yeah, it was double Annex, no third land. Slasher we can still cut down to keep it at bay for a while. But yeah, the fact that they have 2 annexes is pretty rough. I think we still take one. If Liliana minuses, we can finish it off. And another duress takes cut down. Well, they can keep drawing duresses if they don't hit a third land. Now we can return the favor. Take Annex. Since this is likely a game that's gonna drag on for a while. Could have maybe played Forest, better for scavenging ooze. If they end up plussing Liliana, but I doubt it. Alright, so now what? Probably just attack with the bats. Liliana's gonna minus. I still lose Cecil. So then they get to have my life total, but we get to finish off Liliana and still keep the Annex.
Enough with the mysteries. I've come for answers. Haven't you ever heard of personal space?
Just need to draw something useful. And Glissa works. Perfect blocker for the Slasher.
Knew this was a waste of time.
Problem is, if they top deck cut down at any point, they can get their Annex back. Slasher attacks. Not sure why. Maybe there's a sweeper incoming? No. Alright, I guess we get to attack now. And draw. Definitely don't want to remove counters from the Slasher. And then, yeah, we'll play Shieldred. Alright, they drew Go for the Throat. And get to attack. Let's first see what they're working with. Just a land. Alright, so maybe they were just trying to fake us out with a Slasher attack. I guess worst case scenario, they go land Gix's command, but yeah, our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Only the 1 threat, but a good amount of disruption, especially for creatures. Let's see what you're working with. Another mid-range kind of pixie deck. Okay, so probably take the Duress. And then Grimbauble we currently don't care about, but could be relevant later. Hopeless Nightmare, I can just discard a removal spell if needed. Start with Nightmare. Pulse does have the upside of also hitting their various artifacts and enchantments, but Go for the Throat, being an instant, is maybe more efficient to deal with the Preacher. And I do want to keep my land drops. So, between Bauble and Nowhere to Run, they can maybe tag team those to deal with Shieldred. Now Pixie picking up Nightmare is quite annoying. So then I'll lose another land. Still gonna keep Go for the Throat for Preacher. But yeah, now we may not be able to cast Shieldred on curve. Bats forced to take the Bauble here. And then maybe they just cast Preacher, we're okay. And then I could still Shieldred before they get a chance to attack with Preacher. Don't really want them drawing an extra card for free. Because it would, of course, take the trade of Preacher into Shieldred. So then I probably need to Go for the Throat, and then I should probably keep land in hand in case they find another Nightmare. Actually should have cast Go for the Throat in my turn, since they also have Kirin in the deck nowadays, which could pick up the Preacher at instant speed. So that could punish me for waiting. But luckily they didn't have it here. Alright, let's go for Shieldreds. Opponent sacks Nightmare to Scry. That's a good sign. Means they don't have answers in hand. But yeah, we would love to find more card draw effects. Although their Confidant's unlikely to stick around for long, since it also dies to a Bauble. But yeah, an unanswered Shieldred is still a problem for them, and Dread Knight is one of our better draws. Their deck could also be playing Temporary Lockdown, as a way to both remove opposing cutters as well as pick up various 1 and 2 mana permanents. So the Dread Knight might get exiled by it. If Shieldred attacks, they could block with Pixie and shrink it down with Nowhere to Run to still take out Shieldred. So we do have to be a little careful. Let me start by just drawing here. Maybe our draw step will change our play. The Great City can exile cards from their graveyard to make a 1/1 token. Alright, opponent's gonna get lost Shieldred now. So they had an answer all along, but now we get to explore with our maps. And maybe growth a Deep Cavern Bat. Yeah, it's worth a shot. Cut down answers Pixie. Although I'm fine if they trump. And then I don't need to surveil, so we'll just play the Blooming Marsh. Opponent can make a token. Cut down also an answer to the Fortress, which might get busy here. Alright, Beza. Pretty good leftover. So Bat attacks. Surveil. Another Bat doesn't seem ideal. And then Dread Knight's happy to chum block Beza over and over. Opponent did have another Get Lost as it turns out. Gets back Bauble, which answers the Dread Knight. So then I should just cut down the Pixie now. Although there's again the Fortress, which is potentially a higher value target. There's still the concern of Kirin picking something up. But yeah, if I cut down Pixie, the opponent's plays just Bauble, Animate Fortress. Which we can prevent by keeping up cut down. And then I can cut down the Pixie instead. But yeah, if they top-decked the Kirin, I get punished. That works. And another Preacher, pretty good. Liliana, not the best when they have that 1/1 token. So let's draw with Dread Knights. Cut down can now deal with the token, and then Liliana can deal with Beza, since they're probably keeping the Preacher. Yeah, maybe that's still the best use of my mana here. Since Liliana's just gonna keep getting worse as time progresses.
No more distractions. Let's make this quick. Sacrifices must be made.
At least Preacher doesn't draw at the moment. So yeah, still pretty close game. I would say our opponent's slightly ahead. Thanks to the creature land mostly.
Whatever. Luck favors the foolish, after all.
So can still surveil before we go exploring. Cut down doesn't answer Preacher. Go for the throw does. So we'll keep that and pass. I don't think I need to explore a second time. Would still take the trade for Preacher and Dread Knight. Then we can keep Go for the Throat to answer Fortress. Opponent passes. So now I could explore again. And then it's unclear whether I should Go for the Throat Preacher and start attacking here, since I'm not necessarily winning the race against Fortress and a life-linking token. Plus there's still the Kirin concern, but they can make more tokens with Arashan City. Opponent just goes surveilling with the Bauble. Bottom. I guess we can wait until their upkeep to Go for the Throat Preacher if that's our plan. Or if they tap out with a city, then we don't need to worry about Kirin. So then it's probably fine to take care of the Preacher now. Alright, so a bit of a board stall now. Nowhere to Run takes out Dread Knight. They get an attack in with Fortress. But that means we get to draw again with a Dread Knight, which gets us closer to our other card draw engines and ways to stabilize. But yeah, our life total is dwindling, so can only do this once or twice. And we're drawing a fair share of lanes. Liliana, also not the best on this board. I guess we're plussing. They had a Nightmare left, so that was 2 damage. Fortress can still attack into the Dread Knight. I doubt the tokens are getting busy. Alright, another Preacher instead. They changed their mind. And that's a land. So, are we dead on board? Definitely getting close to that point. Might just have to minus Liliana at this point. But yeah, they can make more tokens with City as well. Any chance we can set up an ultimate in time? Probably not before it matters. So at least this way I get to keep a land in hand to keep up appearances. Yeah, I would have liked my own city in this matchup. Although part of the reason why I'm not playing it is because we have Scavenging Ooze, which already benefits from having creatures in the graveyard. Speaking of which, Ooze would be a great draw. Can immediately gain a ton of life to stabilize us, while preventing the opponent from making more tokens. But yeah, Preacher gets to draw now. Don't have that +1 counter to set up the trade anymore. So probably worth it to protect Liliana. That way if I draw cut down for the token, the -2 can maybe still take care of the Preacher. Heritage Reclamation is probably just a redraw. So I can start there. And then I should probably still go for a creature, even though it's not to my advantage if we draw Scavenging Ooze. And a cottage is a little late to the party, I'm afraid. So I can -2. And then I should still be dead on board here if they animate Fortress. 3 damage going through exactly. So yeah, had we found the cottage a little sooner, making those food tokens could have saved us. But yeah, good old mid-range battle. And that's definitely where those utility lands get to shine. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand is pretty balanced. So we'll try. Keep up cut down for a Swiss Spear, perfect. Turn 2. Problem is, right now we don't have a great answer to a Steel Cutter if that shows up. So maybe hitting my land drop with a Dread Knight to get Glissa going is the priority. Alright, the rest might be too late if they cast a Cutter now. Opponent plots a Slick Shot, and we drew the land. So, might be my last opportunity to duress and take a Cutter. And there it is. And then I'm just gonna keep up and go for the throat, although then their play pattern is just plot another Slick Shot. If I tap out, our opponent gets to cast 2 Slick Shots and Bolt Wave, so that's gonna be 6, 9 damage, putting me to 10. I get a chance to top deck Maelstrom Pulse to take care of both Slick Shots, otherwise it's just go for the throat. They can Bolt Wave again. Yeah, kinda puts us between a rock and a hard place. Maybe it is just play Dread Knight or play Scavenging Ooze, which can maybe gain some life back. And then I expect double Slick Shot Bolt Wave. Alright, Maelstrom Pulse off the top. Never mind, opponent drew Burst Lightning. That also doesn't help. So no life gain for us. Cut down I'll take. So I guess we cut down the Slick Shot now and then we can pass with go for the throat up. I do get punished by Spell Pierce, and given that we had the Dread Knight, there was probably no real advantage to passing, since we're going to end up using Go for the Throat anyway. Small chance they Monstrous Rage, that's the reason to hold on to the Go for the Throat. Alright, so we're still at 7. And our opponent's on empty. So now we need to try and stabilize from here. Glissa can draw cards, although it is at the cost of life. Probably still better than just paying 2 mana for the Dread Knights. Dark Confidant might be a bit risky now. So let's see what we draw of Glissa first. Might just play a pair of Dread Knights if we draw land. And the rest also not the best right now. Yeah, I guess it's just Dread Knight pass. Talent can get back Bolt Wave, so we're at 3. Although I can duress the Bolt Wave now, so that's convenient. I guess they would get Burst Lightning since they can kick it. But nope, still goes for Bolt Wave and another duress. So start by attacking. Glissa could also destroy their enchantment, but I think I'm still more interested in drawing. Cecil's interesting too, although still loses me 2 before it turns into a lifelinker. So yeah, I think it's just duress, cast Dread Knight, And our opponent explodes. A very close game. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a fine hand. Plenty of hand disruption to try and protect Dark Confidence. Let's see what we're up against. It is blue-white Omniscience. So temporary lockdown does deal with our creatures, but we do also have Maelstrom Pulse to answer one of them. Tempted to take Stock Up as kind of the more powerful card draw effect. They also still need to find a second white source to cast a lockdown in the first place. They will chart a course. Discarding a land. Well, we could try back-to-back Deep Cavern Bats as well. Want to make sure we have double green available so I can play Ooze and exile something from the graveyard were they to discard Omniscience. So it's a close call here. Maybe we do start with a bat. See if they picked up another card draw effect I want to take away. Nope, just lockdowns. And I actually don't mind if our opponent casts both copies of Lockdown, because Pulse can get rid of both. So instead of playing Bat to take the Lockdown, I think we play Dark Confidant. And if they feel inclined to remove it, we'll get both creatures back at once. But our opponent's gonna wait. Alright. Scavenging Ooze is probably gonna prompt a response. But let's attack in case they want to bounce the Confidence. And then play Ooze plus maybe Cecil. Or just begging them to cast a lockdown. Just gotta hope they didn't pick up a different sweeper. But usually they only have lockdown as a board wipe. So in response, I could exile something from the graveyard, but shouldn't really matter. And then now Pulse, get everything back. And our opponent explodes. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with Keeper. The rest to protect double Dark Confidant. Shieldred can gain us some life back. Hopefully find more interaction along the way. Alright, opponent also on a very similar strategy. Gotta take the Annex. The rest doesn't have any targets. Go for the Throat will take care of one Confidant, but that's okay. So far, so good. I don't think we'll get to draw a card here. Unless they want to keep Go for the Throat for Shieldred. But I'll happily take the 2 Confidants. Small chance they top deck their own Maelstrom Pulse and want to get both Confidants in one go. But I think we still risk it. Alright, we get to untap. So now they're maybe just trying to win the game by having us lose to our own Dark Confidence. And they are dealing quite a bit of damage to us already. So now I'm okay trading Confidant for Llanowar Elves. We've already drawn enough cards off of them. So since we know about Go for the Throat, it's probably Duress plus something else. Opponent's got their own Shieldred, Anoint, Go for the Throat. Anoint cannot take care of Shieldred, so we'll take Go for the Throat. Even though Anoint exiling is maybe a little worse for us with Scavenging Ooze in circulation. And then, I mean, I could just pass and keep up Go for the Throat for if they draw a land for either 4-drop. If I play Scavenging Ooze, they probably anoint it. Same with Glissa, but maybe that's fine, just make them use it. And then next turn we can play Shieldred to hopefully stabilize. If they play Shieldred, we can go for the throat before drawing as well. Where are the lanes hiding? Yeah, they're Confidant, dealing us quite a bit of damage, but in a pinch I guess we could take them both out with our own Maelstrom Pulse. For now, what's the safest play? Yeah, there's no creatures in graveyard for Scavenging Ooze, weirdly. So it might just be Shieldred. I hope they didn't top deck another Go for the Throat. And then Shieldred will, I guess, not save us from the Confidant triggers, since those happen in upkeep. Yeah, interesting spot. Start by attacking. What are the odds that we deal ourselves 6 damage? Not that high, since we drew most of our expensive spells. There's a Liliana, a Maelstrom Pulse, and a Shieldred left, and I guess 1 Glissa, and that's about it. So I don't think we're dying to our own Confidant here. Would need to hit 2 expensive spells in a row. And yeah, our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hands keepable. Bat to maybe clear a path for Dark Confidant. And if that sticks around, we can find more resources. Facing red-white, not sure which variety yet. Could be an Aura deck, could be Jeskai Control. Could just be kind of a red-white burn deck. Yeah, maybe playing Confidant on 2 is still reasonable. Because if they are on Jeskai Control, we can maybe dodge a counterspell. Alright, Steel Cutter, so that we can Maelstrom Pulse. Question is, do we hope they play a second copy so we can pulse both copies? Or do we just get rid of it now? Because we do have Glissa as a decent play as well. Yeah, let's be patient. And they're gonna Lightning Helix one of our 2 creatures. Hopefully they don't deal with the second one too. Alright, that was the worst case scenario. They removed both of my card draw engines and didn't play another cutter. Although now Ooze could gobble up both of my creatures, so it grows up to a 4/4. Could also play Bat, see what else they have, and then decide from there whether or not we play Ooze without being able to grow it right away. So it does look like a burn deck. So then keeping Pulse for Screaming Nemesis could also be important. I do think I get Ooze up to a 4/4. Makes better use of all my mana. And still gives him a turn to maybe deploy a second cutter. And there it is. Alright, will we get rewarded for our patience? Shock goes face. Only white mana left, so probably shouldn't fear any pump spells. So the Ooze can hold off an attack. Alright, first off, can have a look with Deep Cavern Bats. And see a bunch more burn spells. Burst Lightning would be able to take care of my Ooze if they kick it. I can also deal with the Bat. And then say goodbye to the cutters, even though we could also go after the Monk tokens themselves. Still not really in a position to attack, otherwise we end up taking a lot of prowess damage, but our opponent scoops it up, so Maelstrom Pulse claims another victim. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. Hand has 2 tapped lands, which is not ideal. Good mix of Graveyard Hate and Hand Disruption, bit of spot removal. So it has some things going for it, maybe missing like a Dark Confidant or a Glissa to draw extra cards. So that could hold us back. Yeah, maybe it's still a mulligan. This is a little bit better. Bottom one ooze, keep Dread Knight to draw. Still have some disruption with the bat. But now missing our third land drop could be a concern. Put on black-white with a duress. Goodbye, Liliana. So do we bat or do we draw with the Dread Knight? Could also cast it, although black-white might have ways to exile it as well. Yeah, maybe we check out their hand first. So this kind of black-white mid-range. Nowhere to run answers the bat, so we probably take it. But their hand's still pretty stacked. Although this is the type of matchup where Dark Confidant could shine. If we can find a removal with it. I'll take another Liliana off the top. Maelstrom Pulse not bad either. And this turn just go Dread Knight, Adventure, and Cast. They know about the Pulse, so they may not play Shieldred into it, of course. So yeah, interesting turn. Just to be mana efficient, I think it's worth it to Dread Knight. Can maybe still draw removal. And then wait on Ooze for the graveyards to fill up some more. Opponent does step out for Shieldreds. Didn't really feel like double blocking the Preacher. Now Liliana would have been great if they didn't make the token, but Go for the Throat now deals with Shieldred. So yeah, we can clean up nicely. Pulls Shieldred. Don't have to go for the Throat right now. Does Dread Knight even want to attack here? Can hold off the lifelinking token, but if the token attacks, then Dark Confidant gets to attack as well. Sanctuary animates. Still gonna go for Preacher. And then take 4. I think that works for me. Find another Confidence and a Duress. Alright, so Ooze can gain a little bit of life back. Dread Knight probably has to play defense now. And then the question is, do I commit a second Dark Confidant or not? Can go Ooze, activate Confidence. Then I don't get to Duress, which feels worth it, although their play last turn would just animate Sanctuary. So maybe they don't have any relevant non-creature spells left. Yeah, it's certainly Ooze. And I think it's worth it to go for another Confidant. And then if they remove the Dread Knight, it's nice to have another 3/3 blocker to trade for the Sanctuary. And Liliana is acceptable.
This is my home, and I don't appreciate it when people touch my things.
They're gonna minus. Can get rid of one Confidence.
One of your friends has to leave.
Normally I would sack the Dread Knight, but since we're at 7, this seems okay. Take the trade. Exile your creature. And our opponent scoops it up. Yeah, Dark Confidant just drawing too many cards for them to keep up with. Awesome, and we get to rank up here as well. Alright, so we get to see this black-green mid-range deck in action. And yeah, it is a deck that with the right draws is capable of beating pretty much any opponent, but sometimes you will draw the wrong half of your deck. Maybe you don't find any graveyard hate or hand disruption when playing against the Omniscience combo deck. Maybe you don't draw any creature removal when facing aggro, so it does sometimes run into those issues, but this is also a great strategy for best of 3, since you can easily add more specific answers in the sideboard, and then you're much more likely to find whatever you need in certain matchups, while still preserving the card draw engine that is Dark Confidant, Glissa, etc. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.